Quick disclaimer. This episode mentions topics including mental health, and if that is personal to you, I would stray away from this episode.
Okay, what's up, guys? This is Samuel,
This is Nathan.
and we're the Spiritual Statesmen.
Welcome to episode 2. So, for this episode, we are going to be talking mainly about mental health and the stigma around just the expectations put on teenagers and young adults in this generation. Now, we're going to be focusing heavily more on the male side because...
We're both male, right?
But we will still mention like an overall point of view regarding both women and men and the stigma that mental health has, because I feel like the amount of anxiety and stress being put on young men and women, as well as the way that our government continues to stress these different types of expectations on citizens, but also the people working inside the government, their mental health as well. So like we said, it's a sensitive topic. Many people try to, especially males, young men, try to hide it, try to suppress it. And I mean, me and Samuel have our differing opinions, I would say. I think everybody has their own opinions on mental health, but it's serious, especially in today's era with social media. So diving into it, just a quick disclaimer after you just saw a disclaimer, it's going to be a sensitive topic. So yeah. So we won't be hurt if you click away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But so to start off, like I said, me and Samuel, we're young men. We've been, and I can probably speak for both of us to say, like, we were raised in a household where we are expected to go our hardest and to do our best in whatever we do, right? School, work, like, you give 100%. And I think that personally, and I think Samuel could probably agree with me, that's what we're supposed to do as young men. Give it our all, give it 100%, no complaining. But in today's society, I would say that young men have become, I don't want to sound harsh, but young men have become a little bit softer, weaker because of the comfort factor, right? I always wrap around with the being comfortable. I've talked about this, I briefly touched on it last video, of men being comfortable, young men and women, mostly young men, being comfortable in what they do. And in today's society, they're becoming docile. Docile meaning like they're becoming weaker, more passive. And it took a heavy toll on my heart these past 2 years, and I really wanted to bring this to fruition. You know what I mean?
Now, I don't want to say, I totally agree with what you're saying with the comfort factor, and I feel like because of the way that our generation's changing, good and bad, but I feel like the way that we're also taking the side of trying to empower women, I think because we're trying to empower women, we tend to perceive or try to put on the impression that men should be seen as weaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm all for that women and men should be equal.
Yeah.
I'm totally for that, but I don't think, just like before how men were seen as better than women, I don't think women should be seen as better than men.
Exactly.
So I feel like in this generation we put a lot of stigma on expectations regarding men needing to provide for their family and growing up to just doing all of that harsh work. But I also think that the way that these young men and women are being trained and growing up and just the language that we use is psychologically teaching, whether it's children or teaching the college students or high school students on how to be in the future, So I say this all the time, it's poison. It's poison what our young men and women are being taught. We're being taught, young men especially, that it's toxic masculinity to, like you said, provide, to protect, and to be a man. And I think that taking that away from young boys literally it's been shown so many times with the declining birth rates and the uprising and incline of babies with no father, right? Fatherless societies. Yeah. And it's a snowball effect to something bigger. And a society in America
without father, it's a fatherless society, which leads to because fathers are really important. Like we know, dude, we both have our fathers. We're blessed to have our fathers.
Yes, for sure.
They provide something that mothers can't do, and mothers provide something that fathers can't do.
Yeah.
A father's supposed to discipline his son. He's supposed to be his son's hero. He's supposed to have the son's supposed to respect him and love him. Same for the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But he's supposed to raise up his son to where his son won't depart from his ways.
Yeah.
The mother's supposed to nurture, care, be and the mother's supposed to be strong too, just like the father. The mother's not weak, but it's just everyone has their roles.
Yeah.
And when you try to gray those lines, the family, which is probably the most important thing in America, is the family,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It gets destroyed.
Yeah, and I feel like so I know we both grew up in different families, different households, and different structures, I would say. Now, I don't want to get too deep into like our personal lives, but I'm just saying like the way that I've grown up is I know my mother is definitely like the teacher, not the discipliner, but like a teacher. Like whether it's not only academically, but growing up and maturing, teaching you like not only how to treat other people, but also how to be like a man of God.
Exactly.
And so I feel like my father or anybody's father is the one who should be seen, as you were saying, like the hero, like someone that we look up to, someone who we want to eventually become. Now, I feel like in any healthy family, I feel like the sons always feel like they can never be as good as their father because they do so much.
Exactly.
And so I feel like in that sense, men, especially as a guy, I don't ever think I want to be like my mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
and the daughters don't ever think I want to be like my dad.
Exactly. But I feel like that's very healthy because the expectations that we put on ourselves isn't I want to be like my mom. I want to nurture. Not I want to give birth, but I want to like nurture my child.
Yeah.
And I want my wife or my spouse to be the discipliner.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's just not.
It's not. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and I feel like essentially we are holding on to like those traditional values, but I feel like that's a good thing because that is what the Bible has taught us.
Yes.
And so I feel like in this generation, we are trying to gray those lines, and because we gray those lines, it puts an unhealthy and confused expectation on the mental health of young people, men and women, and that's essentially why when we grow up, going into college and going into adulthood, you're confused, and that's why the anxiety, depression, suicide rates are so high in our generation.
I'm glad you said confused because many people try to say Gen Z is lost. Mm-hmm. Many people try to say Gen Z is stupid. Mm-hmm. A lot of people try to say Gen Z is the smartest, right? It goes back and forth. Gen Z they're evil, right? Mm-hmm. Gen Z is just confused, bro. They're confused. We as a generation are just confused.
We're the first technology generation.
Yeah.
Like I don't think even the earliest of Gen Z, we can't remember a time where, our iPhones didn't exist.
And that leads to the comfort factor because it doesn't let you develop yourself, develop your mind, right? Mm-hmm. If you have all the answers right here, I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying that that's bad. It's probably one of the most revolutionary things to ever come to the face of the earth, right? It's important. Mm-hmm. It can be used for great things like spreading the word of God. We're using technology to literally have this podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But when it becomes your source of information and you don't have critical thinking skills, it numbs your brain and it makes everything easier. And when you make things easier, it's like a muscle. You don't train your muscles. You don't work out your muscles. Your brain's a muscle. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. If you don't train your brain, it's going to turn into mush. You're not going to be an asset to anyone because you're going to be so reliant on that.
Yeah.
So that plus like social media within that gives our young kids like a false perception of reality.
Yeah.
And the false perception of reality, they think that they can, live perfect lives. They think that they can do whatever they want. And it's like it's lying to them. It's deceitful, right? Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we might be going off topic, but I also want to touch on the topic of celebrities. Because I feel like whether it's how you were saying earlier, like those families without a father or even without a mother, like those single parent homes or even like those foster homes, I feel like the expectation is so different because they grow through a different type of family. And I feel like, and I think this is just natural, however you grow up is how you want to treat your family in the future, And
or it's how you do treat your family in the future because like you can grow up bad. Like you can grow up abused,
Yes.
but you don't want to abuse your family. It's
Yes.
just-
So
yeah.
I actually want to touch on that topic. The majority of people who I know, I don't want to put out a number because I don't know it, but I know that the majority of abusive parents had abusers themselves. And so in that sense, it usually goes two ways. Because I'm studying psychology, I know that it goes two different ways. If you grow up with I don't want to say abused, but not so good household, you either continue on that trend
or you break the cycle.
or you break the cycle to the complete opposite.
Yes.
You know, and so that's just how our brains work, because either that's all we know, so that's all we're gonna do, or I hated it so much I would never wish that on anybody else.
And there's actually I heard a story on this, and I mean it's not a true story, but it's like my dad told me, he said it was a while ago. He said that like a man either has two options, right? Like you said, the 1 and 2, but his father was a drunkard. He was abuser. He was evil. He was an evil man. It was the man and his brother. They were abused. The man became a doctor, and the brother was a druggie on the street. And someone asked the man and the brother, how did you become a doctor? And how did you become a druggie on the street? And the man answered, he said, well, because my dad was abusive. And the the man on the street, his brother, he literally said the same exact thing. He said, my dad was abusive. So men especially, they have two options, like you just said. And it's the mindset that people have. You can either break, or you can either build and say, I'm not going to be like you, bro. Or you can say, I'm like you because of what you did to me.
Yeah.
That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma of men, right? That's what separates the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back to that celebrity point. It's like, because our technology is so ingrained in our brains, like one of the first things I do is technology. You know, like I wake up, like even my alarm clock is on my phone. You know, and so like everything we do is surrounded by our phones. Now, no matter how often you check social media, I feel like whenever you do check social media, or even if you look at TV, or if you watch any programs, or even in school when you watch something, there's always this expectation put on. Now, whether it's like body image because of celebrities who have, good bodies, or it's like actors who are succeeding, or singers, like we tend to idolize these celebrities, and like I'm gonna just throw out like the biggest name, like Taylor Swift.
Oh my God.
I feel like there are so many. Now, I don't want to just say women. I feel like there are also men too, but so many people are idolizing like Taylor Swift, because she's so successful. But if you become too idolized, you put that expectation on yourself that you need to become that.
Exactly.
And then when you don't become that, that's when the depression, the anxiety kicks in, because you put so much pressure on yourself to be so good, and you fail because it's unreasonable, and then you start to just hurt yourself.
You couldn't have said that better, bro. Especially like Taylor Swift, big names. And I'm bringing it back to what we should think about our mother and father. So a man, from what I was taught by my dad, who is my hero, who is the smartest man I know, the strongest man I know, the most loving man I know, right? This is what it should be. I mean, there's an exception though. If your father or mother, they're abusive, they're monsters, that shouldn't be the same thing. But my dad wasn't perfect. I know for sure, by all means, my dad's not perfect. My mother's not perfect either.
Yeah,
I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But my dad, I hold so much respect for my dad that it shows me, like you said before, I want to be like him. And he told me every day since I was young, he said, you're going to be better than me. You are going to be better than me. And I never believed him. But that's what a father should do. A father should make his son a better man than he is. And the son should strive to do it, even though the son thinks, like you said, even though the son thinks he can't do it because his father's just so great. The son must strive to be better than that. And that's how we progress as a society.
Yeah. But as you grow up, as you raise your own children, your son will think the exact same thing. And
that's what it has to be. It has to be like that.
And so I feel like there's so often in times when there's just a continuous cycle of that, which is so healthy. But then you put in a cycle of where, say, that child or that daughter, breaks that cycle. Whether there's a mother that's the head of the household, or whether or not it's a father or a son who becomes a father who eventually leaves, or God forbid, dies or passes
Yes.
away. And so I feel like any of those things happen. Like like death is not an uncommon thing. Everybody deals with it. Everybody deals with hardships. Now those hardships are always different, but all it takes is one hardship to break that cycle for one family. And so I feel like whenever we do see that hardship, there's always a different cycle between that son and daughter.
And that's the thing though. It's not a knock. To say what I said, it's not a knock on the mothers who are single, who are trying to raise their son.
Yeah, definitely.
Because those single mothers are probably one of the most strongest people in the world.
Yeah,
because they have 2 jobs, being a mother, being a father, and like nurturing. Like they have one of the hardest jobs ever. Single motherhood it's a epidemic.
Yep.
So it's been growing at a very, very quick rate these past maybe 30, 40 years. And the government is promoting this, right? EBTs, food stamps. They're promoting abortion. They're making it easy for fathers to go, and they're actually they're making men pay way more child support, right? Enabling the mother, if she doesn't care about the man, to just leave, divorce, be a single mom. That's where the single motherhood becomes dangerous. When the wife divorces for the money, right? She gets money, thus making the man pay more. Dude, I know so many people that like they're older and they're divorced and they keep paying child support, right? They pay child support and it just breaks them down mentally. It just breaks them down. Like, why is she taking all this away from me, right? And I think that's the problem with modern America, and it's become very sad. It's gonna keep growing.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to that, like how you were saying, like child support and stuff like that, I feel like it tacks away onto how the men continue to live. It's like basically a bill, that you have to pay every single month. And while I totally agree that if it's the father who leaves, he should be responsible for that child,
exactly.
obviously. But I also do feel like there is a promotion of if the mother's not happy and divorces, there's 2 things that are happening to that man. One, his money's being taken, which I do think at some point it is reasonable. But the relationship with that child, I think
broken.
It's not only broken for the father, because the father loses out on being a father, but the son loses out on having a father. And I think that's even more important, because no amount of money, no amount of nurture from the mother, no amount of money given from the father can ever make up for a relationship with the father.
It can't. Dude,
and like even if you have mentors or a pastor or anybody who's like a fatherly figure over you,
it's not your dad.
Yeah, even though it might feel a little bit in the right direction, it's never 100% covered, because there's always a missing piece of the puzzle. And so when that child eventually becomes a parent, now we're focusing on fathers, if that son becomes a father, there's usually either a very, very good part where he learned from it and says, I'm going to be the best father possible, or he's going to carry on the thing.
Carry on the legacy.
And say...
Most people do carry on the legacy. It takes a strong man and strong-minded man to break that cycle. Right?
Like, say, if I have a son now, okay, now it's my time to leave. I provided the child, now it's my time to go.
That you can't think like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just the mental health stigma around that is always so depleting for people. And so, I feel like there's so many times, especially for high school and college students, both young men and women, who not only with families, but I feel like the pressure, I want to go back to the amount of pressure we're putting on the younger students.
So, that's a very big topic. I know in your culture, dude, like I'm Mexican, he's Asian. I know your culture, especially Asian culture, really emphasizes schooling. And I know with that comes a lot of stress. My friend, his name's Eric. We went to high school together.
Yeah.
His name's Ming He. That's his real name.
Yeah.
Ming He was born in China. Obviously, he came down. He was a foreign exchange student, and I became really close with him. He was like my brother. He told me. I asked him, "Well, in China, how was the schooling?" Right? And he tells me, he says, "I don't want to, like Nathan, like that,
Yeah.
like that. But he was like, Nathan, it was something you never even imagined. You can't even fathom what it was. Over here, it's nothing compared to what they teach you in China, or what they expect from you in China. In China, they have something called like the civil service exams. It's a giant test that is placed on all of the tell me if I'm wrong, or
no, you're right.
That's what Eric told me.
Yeah.
There's a giant test, a civil service exam that all the students take. And this test, if you pass it, you're going to get a high-paying job. If you don't pass it, you're going to be a low-paying job, and you're going to be looked at as an idiot in society.
It's kind of like, I feel like at this point, like, you know how when we apply to colleges, they measure everything. You know, your extracurriculars, the things you do, the sports you play, your GPA, your essays. When it comes to those exams that you're talking about in China, you could have perfect scores throughout your 4 years, right? But if you fail that one exam, it's over.
Your life is over.
Yeah, it's not your life is over, but it's over for at least the future.
Yeah. Okay.
You know? And so I feel like that amount of pressure, now I don't know much about how Mexico or Hispanic schooling is. And so I feel like, especially I'm going to talk from my side, the expectations put on Asian children. Now, I'm not saying every family's like this, but the majority, especially back in mainland or, you know, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, I feel like there's a lot of those parents who, they only know expectations on their schooling. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually, looking back on my childhood, I actually appreciate the amount of pressure I was given to perform well in school. Because now, I feel like my parents have settled down a bit in where they're not as putting that much pressure in college, but I give myself that pressure now. And I feel like it's a healthy amount of pressure because if I don't do well in school, I feel disappointed in myself. And I think that's natural.
Yeah.
But I feel like because of that, if you have a parent who's, and I'm not saying this style is bad, this parenting style is bad, but if you have a parent who's focused more on the happiness, it's a great thing, but I feel like it also takes away from the academic part. And vice versa, my academic upbringing took away from a little bit of that, you know, joy growing up through that, you know?
Yeah, so Mexican culture, it's funny because I'm full Mexican, right? Both parents are Mexican.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't really too good with school. My mom was freaking smart, really smart in school, super smart. So she always emphasized, because that's why I can relate a little bit with you guys, because she always emphasized school. If I had a B, I can't play video games, I'll be in trouble. So I always had to keep A's, which, I mean, I'm glad that my mom was on me in school because, I graduated with a 4.0, right? I know you graduated with a 4.5, you're a genius. But, I mean, I had pretty good grades because my parents emphasized school. And my dad did too, but he didn't really emphasize school, he emphasized hard work. And my dad both my mom and dad came from the same city, La Puente. Very ghetto, very low income, very impoverished city. And my dad, I'm not trying to put him on blast here, didn't live a very good childhood. It was abusive. And he's the prime factor, going back to fathers, that showed me he broke the cycle. He's the one that broke the cycle. So he's teaching me the same thing that he was taught, or that he was taught, because he didn't really have a lot of father figures except his grandpa. His grandpa was, from what I can imagine, I never met him, a lot like my dad. Very hard, very, very rough around the edges, but very careful and very, very, very smart when it came to common sense. Yeah. My dad's the smartest man I know when it comes to, Shakespeare, not his thing, right? He's not really good at math. Well, he's actually really good at math. But he's just not good in school, bro. He was never good in school. He had F's he barely passed high school. But his last, his senior year, he was told he wasn't going to graduate by his family member. Literally told, he was the family member was I don't think you're going to graduate. And told the principal, I don't think he's going to graduate. So what did my dad do? He said, all right, took night classes every single night, passed with all A's and a B. Literally just finished high school. Who does that, bro? Nobody does that. So going back to parents having their own strength, my mom, book smart, she went to UCR, very smart. My dad didn't go to college, ended up owning a construction company because he worked his ass off, right? So there's having both of that is a blessing. And I think that's what they brought for me. But my culture, Mexican, it's more work, 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 work.
Yeah.
Take a little break, work, work, work. Have party, have fun, because that's what we do. We drink a lot of Modelo's. We have fun, and then work, work, work. It's very family oriented. But schooling and book smarts, that's not really our forte. It's my family's forte. Yeah. But more like going back to our cultures, it's not really my thing. So, but yeah, dude, no, it's mental health. Going back to, because I know we went pretty far from our main point. But dude, mental health today, man, it's a whole new animal.
Yeah. I
personally, and you can disagree with me, a lot of it is BS. A lot of it. I'm not saying all mental health is BS.
Yeah.
A lot of it is self-inflicted. It's a self-inflicted wound, and it's self-diagnosed.
Yes.
You can say if you're sad, if you're feeling a little bit sad one day, I'm depressed, right? And it's used as a crutch. Used as a crutch to say, well, I'm not going to go to work because I feel depressed. Instead of going to work, going outside, breathing in air, thanking God for what He gave you, working out, eating right, having a better mindset, getting off YouTube, getting off Instagram, deleting all that stuff just for temporarily, and dedicating your life to the one above. That is the true. That beats any depression medicine. Yeah. That's the medicine, the Word of God, and the Lamb of Life. Hard work, dedication. That's all you need, bro. And I'm not knocking those on like antidepressants, because sometimes it's serious, right? Yeah. I myself, I've been blessed. Like, I've been sad many times, but I'll never say I was depressed, because I had something. I had something to look for. I had something to live for every single day. My family, and I had God, dude. That's all I need.
Yeah, and in a way, I kind of feel bad for those who are diagnosed with depression or anxiety, and so I feel like we use the word depression, or I'm stressed and I'm anxious. We use it as a term so lightly, and the weight of the word has kind of gone down, because I feel like you can be sad. I'm not saying that people aren't sad. People get sad all the time. But to put the word depression on that sadness is a little bit serious, because I feel like at times you get, like, say you fail a test, or say you break up with your partner, something happens and you say, I'm depressed, because that's the term that you've grown up with. But it's not really depressed as it is, I'm sad, right? I'm sad, I'm not feeling great right now because something happened to you. But I feel like depression at this point has gone into a medical diagnosis, to where it is you cannot function, right? And it's not linked, well, it is linked, but it's not the same as bipolar disorder, but rather depression is like where you can't function, in a sense of like everything shutting down around you. Yeah. It's a different level of sadness.
It's a whole new animal. Like, it's not, I'm sad, it's, I feel I have nothing to live for.
Yeah, and so a lot of the statistics of where you say this percentage of people are depressed,
they're kind of like,
which percentage is really depressed, and which percentage of that stat is just I'm sad, And same goes with anxious, right? You can be anxious for the SAT, or you can be anxious for college admissions. You can be anxious for basketball or football, but true anxiety. See, Siri wants to talk. But you can be anxious for anything, right? But true anxiety and taking medication for anxiety is a whole different level.
Yeah, dude. Right? And I have a friend, his name's Tim. He was talking to me about his depression fight. He had a fight with depression. He couldn't sleep at night. He just had Satan whispering in his ear. And he told me the doctor prescribed to him a medicine that lowered his serotonin levels, because the doctor said he has high serotonin levels. So the antidepressant would lower your serotonin levels. He took it, was getting worse. Come to find out that the reason why he was depressed was because he had low serotonin levels. So that medicine just made it worse. Yeah. From what I was told. He told me. What he started doing, work out, read the Bible every morning, get out, don't even touch your phone for an hour, right? That's what he was telling me to do. Yeah. Dude, drink a lot of water, bro. Treat people with respect and kindness. Be kind. Yeah. And love God. Love God, follow God, be righteous. And that is the best medicine that can ever be achieved, dude. Because it's hard, bro. It's hard it's hard being comfortable, and it's hard doing the hard things. But you have to choose your hard. You have to choose your pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna cry? My dad always used to tell me, because he would make me run. I was a little fat boy when I used to work out, but I used to have to run on the treadmill because I played basketball, and he would always make me run, and I would always cry. I would want to quit. I'd be wheezing because I was out of shape. He said, "Are you gonna cry to stop and quit, or are you gonna cry to keep going?" And that's the dilemma that men have.
Yeah.
Are you gonna cry to stop? Are you gonna cry to say, "I'm done. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I can't do anything no more because I'm just sad"? Or are you gonna say, "Nah, f that, bro. I'm sad. Even though I'm sad, I'm gonna do what I have to do because that's what men do.
Yeah.
To do the hard things."
Mm-hmm.
So dude, yeah.
So I want to bring up this stat that we found earlier. Now, again, I'm talking about, like, I'm not too sure how much of this is medically diagnosed and how much is just I'm saying this. But from this chart, right, from this company called What to Become, they're a very popular surveying company. And so their company says that the mental health challenges that college students faced during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything was shut down. And so it says here that there is a 68% of social isolation. Now, I totally believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
You're quarantined, you're by yourself, only people that you have is your family. If you don't have a great relationship with your family, loneliness, right? But the bigger stat is 82% of people have anxiety. And so I don't want to trash on anybody who actually has anxiety. That's the least thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
So let's just take it with the least amount of speculation, right? Let's pretend all 82% of those people were medically diagnosed with anxiety. Now, if that were true, how sad that is crazy.
Yeah.
That is, 8.2 out of 10, right? Like, that is, if you have 10 people in a room, one of them is on the fence of anxiety. One is perfectly fine, but 8 of them have anxiety. And so anxiety is a scary thing. It messes with your mind. It messes with the way that you can talk, you function, your social battery. It's so many different things. And so if we're going to talk about this COVID-19 pandemic and just how much it affected college students, college is supposed to be one of the most growing times of your life. You're maturing the most. It's your first experience pretty much on your own, right? Like, you're starting to separate from your family and your parents. Not like separate, but like you're growing on.
You're becoming your own man.
Your own person. And so struggling with COVID-19 and just the effect that it had on people who were living through that at that time, I feel like it's just this anxiety statistic could be true. And I feel like if it's so heavy to where 82% of college students struggle with anxiety, I feel like there needs to be something done with what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it's not working. Something is not working, right? So people blame the school system. People blame the stuff that we eat, and that's a whole other thing in itself. Yeah. People blame anything. People always want to put the blame on something, never themselves.
Yes.
So maybe it could be the school system. Maybe it could be what we put in our bodies. Maybe it could be what we do to ourselves, or maybe it's all of that, right? A lot of factors can play. It doesn't have to be just one factor. But like I said before, I think a lot of it is self-inflicted. I think a lot of men and women put pressure on themselves that it's unneeded because of what society and what social media expects them to do. Yeah. I think that just the media in general, what it tells you to do, people try to emulate that, right? They try to have impossible goals to reach. Yeah. And that's not it's not bad. It's not bad to have impossible goals. I think it's vital to have impossible goals because normal people don't chase impossible goals because it's impossible. But the 1% that do, they say, okay, I'm going to chase perfection. Kobe said this. I'm going to chase perfection, and it's going to make me better than 99% of the guys, because 99% of the guys won't even chase perfection. They won't reach it. But the fact that I'm chasing perfection goes to show that I'm better than you. Exactly. Mentally, physically, spiritually, I'm better than you, right? So, yeah, dude, and a lot of it is self-inflicted. Yeah. A lot of it can be changed with a simple mindset switch and a simple opening of the Bible. Yeah. I think that, dude, that's the key to everything.
Yeah. And so when you look at these stats, I also want to mention, like, these stats are skewed because there are also outliers, right? So this stat says these mental health challenges amid the COVID-19 pandemic. But you also have to realize that COVID-19 isn't the only thing in each person's lives, right? There are so many other factors. Whether it's not really COVID-19, but rather because I'm quarantined, my parents are more abusive, right? Because I'm home more. Or because of COVID-19, I have a new living situation, whether it's with a new partner, with a new spouse, things aren't going well, right? And whether there's abuse or sexual abuse, I feel like there's so many different stats that could affect this part. And so if you go deeper into this stat, it says there's 63% of depression,
Okay.
62% can't concentrate, 60% cannot cope with stress, 51% and cannot handle emotions. And there's two more that I want to get into afterwards, but it's ranging from 51 to 63% where either they're depressed, can't concentrate, or can't cope with stress.
And like you said, let's say that's real.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? Everything we've tried doesn't work. Everything that modern society, our generation, has tried, that's of this world, that's carnal, hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So what is there, right? Who do we call on? We know the answer. But people don't want to do it because they don't want to deny themselves.
Exactly.
That because they want to live for themselves. If you're your own God, you are not going to succeed because you are not perfect.
Mm-hmm. And so I feel like obviously, I think for us the answer is God. And so
I think for everybody, look, I'm not trying to, I don't force religion down people's throat.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, it's God.
Yeah. And so later on, I want to get into the mental health of politicians, but I just feel like when it comes to these college students, right? I don't want to say that it is only our generation that is struggling.
It's not.
It's not. But I do want to include the fact that we are struggling with the social media aspect because as we go deeper, it says 32% of those students have unhealthy social media use. Now, to what extent unhealthy means, I don't know.
It's subjective.
You can classify 1 hour a day as unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
but you can also classify 10 hours a day as unhealthy.
Yeah.
But I think unhealthy, in my eyes, is when you get to a point of where you would rather scroll through social media than do something productive.
Yeah, that's
Right?
pretty unhealthy.
If you want to skip class, even if it's through COVID, if you want to skip Zoom just to scroll, if you skip your workout just to scroll, if you skip your basic life, if you skip eating just to scroll, and it doesn't even have to be scrolling. It could be watching something. It could be an unhealthy obsession with what you're learning through social media, right? It could be other types of media like pornography or Netflix, Hulu. It could be anything, right? And obviously, you can enjoy those TV shows. You can enjoy scrolling through social media to an extent. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's a great way to relax, right? But too much is, for anything, no matter how healthy something is, when you get to an obsession, it becomes unhealthy, right? You can work out too much. You can eat too healthy to where it's unhealthy, And so I feel like there's so many points in life where this type of social media stigma, where it's 32% have unhealthy social media usage. But I want to say, out of those 32%, what does the unhealthy really mean? So what's your idea of unhealthy?
My idea of unhealthy, you kind of said it perfectly. It's going on social media for too long to the point where you're not productive. Mm-hmm. You're not productive in work. You're not productive in helping your family. You're not productive in loving your wife, loving your children, or loving your brother and sister and your mom. But it kind of goes both ways because you can go on social media a lot to learn something, right? Yeah. Maybe people go on social media, YouTube, and they learn things that end up bettering themselves as men and women.
Easily.
Two, another thing is when you go on social media too long and you see, and we talked about this before, you have that unhealthy belief that you can be like that celebrity. I think that's another thing. Mm-hmm. Your question was, what was your question?
What do you classify as unhealthy social media usage?
Yeah, so trying to emulate a celebrity, finding them as your god, and also, lastly, finding unhealth, like, I think it's just those two, honestly. Like the third one kind of, it literally just wraps in with the second one. Thinking that you can be like somebody else. Comparing yourself with other people, because comparison is the thief of joy. You compare yourself to other people, it's like you're driving, right? Everyone's life is a road. But you're driving, when you drive, you don't look at that car. You don't look at that car, because if you keep looking at that car, what are you going to do?
Crash.
You're going to crash, and you're going to burn.
Yep.
So what you do is you keep your eye on the road, bro. You keep your eye, and this goes for anybody. You keep your eye in front. You keep your eye to your future, not their future, not their life. And I struggled with this a lot when I played basketball, because there's a lot of people that I played with. I knew I was better than, but they succeeded. They went to the goal I wanted to go to, and I tried comparing myself to them, and I just wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So, and my dad taught me everything I know. He even told me, but he told me this. He says, if he was driving with me that one time, that's where I got the road analogy. He said, if I look right, where am I going to swerve? And we were swerving right, and we were about to crash. I was like, the hell, what are you doing? What's going on? He said, if I look left, what's going to happen? Good thing nobody was on the road. He said, if I look left, what's going to happen? We almost crashed to the left side. I was like, Dad, what are you doing? He said, you need to stay in your lane. You need to stay, and you need to keep your eyes forward, dude, because it's your path, it's your life, and it's not nobody else's. And social media blinds our young men and women into thinking that their life can be my life.
Yeah.
That's poison.
Now, the last statistic before I want to move on to the mental health in our government is 18% have suicidal thoughts. Now, how much of that 18% actually acts on it? I don't have the stat for that. But just the fact that 18% even have suicidal thoughts is scary. And I feel like, I don't want to say we're making suicide sound something normal, but I do want to say I feel like suicide is being not accepted, but the way that the more that you hear about somebody committing suicide,
you get desensitized.
The more desensitized and in your brain it is. Because I don't think back then, like, the normalcy of suicide was even a thought. Like,
yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, and so if you hear nowadays, if I hear about, like, even me, if I hear about somebody who killed themselves, I'm like, oh wow, that's horrible. But it's not like a once in a lifetime thing.
And it's not surprising.
And it's not like, oh my gosh, let's hope that never happens again because he's the only one that's ever done it. It's actually now more so like they kill themselves. It's horrible. Like, no, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. Right? And I think that's the saddest part, is because we've become so desensitized, that's a great word, to suicide. And I feel like suicidal thoughts are, I wouldn't say encouraged, but rather normalized. Because you can think anything. I can think about whatever I want. It's my own brain. Nobody has to know what's inside of my head. Only God knows. But those suicidal thoughts are real. And I wouldn't classify suicidal thoughts as like, you know, if you're driving, I feel like everybody who drives has that thought of,
what
like,
if I just jump,
you know,
go off this cliff?
Yeah, like I don't think that's a suicidal thought, because you're not gonna do it. But it's rather, no, I don't want to make more jokes about this, but like suicidal thoughts, like it's a very serious thing. And if that 18% have suicidal thoughts and 82% have anxiety, that's a huge range. Like in a sense, you're thinking, oh, the majority of people who have anxiety don't really have suicidal thoughts. That's a good thing. It's a great thing. But just the fact that it's even 1% is sad, because our generation, amongst COVID-19 and your own personal issues, there's a real thing happening here, you know?
Yeah, dude. So suicidal thoughts they come from the enemy, right? And your enemy anything can be anyone's enemy, pretty much. So just like anything can be anyone's God, right? God can be someone's enemy. But the true enemy is Satan. The true enemy is self-pleasure. The true enemy is iniquity. The true enemy is sin. And when you let sin in your mind, you let poison in your mind. And your mind lies to itself. And you have Satan lying to you, pretty much. Yeah. Saying that you're not enough. You are worthless. You should kill yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what these suicidal thoughts. Also, you have bipolar disorder. You have the depression, right? A lot of it stems from sin. All of it stems from sin, pretty much. Like we're all imperfect because of sin, but a lot of it stems from this. And when you have a society that reinforces that, that says it's okay to have suicidal thoughts, it's okay to do this. Just take this medicine, and you're gonna feel better.
Yeah.
Take this. Don't go to work today. Don't do this. Don't do that. Rest. Get some sleep. Don't work, because work would make it worse, right? No, that is a lie from Satan. You need to go out and you need to fight. You need to fight. It's an everyday fight. For those who are broken, for those who have those thoughts, dude, you need to go, even if it takes every single day, every morning. You say, every morning you want to kill myself? Every morning I want to kill myself. You say, no, I don't. No, that's a lie from Satan, and then that's a lie from hell itself, dude.
Yeah.
And that is how you succeed. I personally have never had suicidal thoughts. I have a lot of friends who have had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And every single time, it's, well, I don't know. I just don't feel like I matter. I don't feel like, I feel like I'm worthless, dude. I just feel like I'm space. Yeah. And dude, that is like such a lie, dude. Like you matter. Everyone matters, bro.
Yeah.
And going back to the family, I just want to touch on this before we move on. Going back to the toxic feminist movement, right? There's a feminist, there's like the equality, right? Which is okay. We're all none of us are sexist, right? I don't think that men are better than women, nor I think that women are better than men. I think that men have a personal responsibility as the head of the household to protect their wife, and they have a personal responsibility to be the leaders. Doesn't mean that they're better than women.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
But when women, and you brought this up, when women try to bring themselves to men's level, and when women try to say they're better than men, and they degrade men by saying they're toxic, they're being too much, they're being sexist, they're being chauvinist, that literally suppresses men and their mind and makes them docile and makes them depressed, and it makes them feel that they're worthless. Men are not worthless, nor are women worthless. We need each other.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have women, how are we going to be born, right? Like, dude, like we literally need each other.
Yeah.
If I didn't have my mom, dude, I don't know how, and if I didn't have my dad, dude, I wouldn't be a man. If I didn't have my mom, I wouldn't be smart, and I wouldn't be a strong and caring person. Yeah. And if I didn't have my dad, I wouldn't be disciplined. Yep. Dude, it goes hand in hand, bro.
They go, I mean, if you go back to the Bible, like, God created Eve for Adam, right? Yes. And so we need each other. And it's not like an independence thing, right? But I actually would argue that in the Bible, it states specifically, men have to get married, right? Women have their own form of independence, and I don't think it's as heavy, but men are created to provide for a family, you know? Yeah. And so before we get too deep on that, maybe as a future topic, but I want to move more towards how does the mental health of politicians, our government, how does mental health affect those people?
Yeah, so mental health isn't really mutually exclusive to the citizens, right? Politicians have mental health. Yeah. What is said to them, right? They have a lot of people, they have a lot of haters, they have a lot of people who support them. Yeah. There's a lot of, it's a lot of stress, right? That comes with politicians. And I would say back in the day, right, 40s, 50s, years ago, I would say that politicians had way more stress because a lot of them actually cared to help the people. I think today you have politicians who are just there. I know you told me not to kick my feet up, but they're just kicking their feet up and going like this, right? They're getting their money, right? They're getting all this stuff, and they don't have to worry about anything. And I think that there's a difference between bad stress and good stress. Yeah. And I think the mental health of politicians today is I would say actually much less. Personally, I think it's much less than what it was back then. Because if you look at Abe Lincoln, for example, like there were stories about him being so stressed out, like he would get sick, like he would be bedridden because of the Civil War. You don't hear about that now. You have Joe Biden, who he already looks like he's stressed out because he's damn near 90 years old, right? Yeah. So he looks like, but he didn't do anything to stress him out. He's just old. Yeah. So, like that dude, even though that it takes a mental toll to be a president, to be a congressman, to be a senator, I think that it's on the person to see how stressed they are. Like I don't know if I explained that correctly.
Yeah. And simply because I learned so much about Ronald Reagan this summer, because I had access to pretty much everything from that tournament. I feel like I can speak a lot about Reagan's life because I know so much about it now. He was so impactful to America, and not even through, because he not only did he enable the internet in America, but also his philosophy of life, and one of the biggest things that I learned about him was that when he was a graduate right out of high school, he was a lifeguard. And so he was a lifeguard in the sense that he would stay every single day, and his whole job was to save people's lives. And he continuously took that philosophy of a lifeguard and carried it throughout his whole presidency, right? And whether it was through the ranch that he has or had, and everything that he went through, or whether it was through the conflicts that he faced, whether through war, and his biggest decision was letting the internet in America. And so I feel like now obviously nobody's perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say that Reagan was amazing and perfect, but I am going to say that Reagan, especially in these most recent 10 presidents, he was so impactful in the sense that everybody cared for him, right?
Yeah.
You've never seen, especially right now, you are never going to see a Republican candidate or Democrat. You're never going to see a single candidate in the president race that wins 49 states.
Yeah.
He only lost one state.
I remember seeing that.
To Michigan.
Yeah, I saw that presidential.
And that was the other candidate's hometown, right? So, what Republican or Democratic, the Democrats, obviously, who lost to Reagan, they still supported him. Now, obviously, nobody's going to be like, oh, I'm in love with this guy. But right now, even with Biden as president, or Trump, or Obama, even though they were president, the other parties still had tension towards them.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas with Reagan and with previous presidents like JFK, Lincoln, like Washington, they had so much support. Because they won. They won, and people were like, okay, we concede our stance. At least for right now, we recognize that we are going to work with you.
And that's what made our country so strong.
Yes.
Because we were together as one. We weren't Democrats or Republicans. We were America.
Yeah.
And that went away. That started to go away more in the 90s, 2000s era. Social media rose. A lot of propaganda. A lot of lies on each side. A lot of muckrakers, people who try to find dirt on other people.
Yep.
And lies in the media, dude. And that, going back to deception, that's literally deception. And that's what's splitting our country apart, dude. 50% are Republican, 50% are Democrat. It's literally down the middle, bro. And we're never going to grow if we keep doing that, which I don't think we're ever going to go back. I don't think America, I think it's possible. I just don't think people are just so stubborn.
We're never going to get to that level.
We're never. It's just people are so stubborn. People are so stuck in their ways that we're gonna we're the house divided against itself, bro. What did Abe Lincoln say? He said a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Yeah.
With the Civil War, with the Confederacy and the Union, we're the house and we are divided against itself.
Yeah.
So as long as we keep doing this, bro, as long as we have our little civil war right here, gives the entire country, all our enemies, all the evil dictatorships and all the totalitarian countries, that gives them the green light to say, okay, let's go attack Israel, let's go attack Ukraine, let's go attack all of these countries that rely on America, because America is fighting itself. If our biggest enemy is fighting itself, that's how you destroy them.
Yeah.
Right.
And so going back to that mental health aspect, I feel like just the fact that this podcast exists, right? Just the fact that social media puts so much pressure on politicians and governmental agencies and all of these different organizations, there's so much mental health damage done to these people. Now, I still hold on to the argument that if you're a politician, you've got something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Just because,
I can't even argue with that.
Just because you're either you're too selfish or you're so unselfish.
Yeah. Most of them are selfish, though.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that, I don't mean, wrong with you, there's something literally wrong with you. But I'm saying, you have a different mindset than normal people, right? And I commend you for that. And I just feel like because there's a different mindset, normal people, normal citizens tend to bash you for it.
That's true.
Now, there are tons of supporters, but tons of people will also bash you for it. And so, constantly, every single day, like, I wonder how Kevin McCarthy's mental health is right now.
Oh, it's probably like
It's
very
down.
Yeah, very down.
And I wonder how they're, like, even if you lose it, I wonder how Trump's mental health, I wonder how Joe Biden's health is, I wonder how Kamala Harris, you know, I feel like every single person in that process, their mental health is so damaged.
It's depleted because it doesn't matter how strong you are mentally. If you are told every day that you're garbage and you should die, it's gonna take a toll on you. Maybe not. Sometimes it's not that big because sometimes words don't really hurt you that much as other things do. Depends on the person, but it's gonna take a toll on you, right? But going back, I don't want to go too far back, but if just like a child, bro. If the parents tell the child you're garbage, you're nothing, you're stupid, you're just you're a disappointment.
Yeah.
What's the child gonna grow up to be? A disappointment and a loser.
Yeah.
But if the child is told, like how I was told by my parents, I thank God every single day, they told me I was gonna change the world. They told me I was gonna do this, I was gonna do that, dude. You are smart, you're confident, you need to fight, dude. You have Christ by your side, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. My aunt always told me that. Philippians 4:13, right? Everyone knows that verse. Yeah. But dude, I was never bashed. Sometimes if I messed up, I'd be like, "Yeah, you're stupid," right?
Yeah, and that's normal.
Yeah, I was never degraded.
Yes.
Like how a lot of these kids are, dude. They're degraded. They think they're garbage. They're told they're garbage. So what are they going to be? They're going to be garbage.
Yeah.
But if you're strong, if you're told you're strong, if you're told, "I love you, son, I love you," we're going to work hard for you. You need to work hard. You need to do this, and you will be successful. You're going to change the world. You're going to change the game.
And I feel like almost going back to the politicians and like all of our governmental people, I think they're almost numb.
Yeah.
And I think that's even scarier. I think being numb is even scarier than being depleted. Because when you're depleted, that means you can recharge still. That means if you take a break, you can still get better. If you're numb to it, if you're numb to all of the memes being put out there, now, like, obviously, we laugh at all the memes, but I just want to think, like, if you put yourself in that shoe, like, put yourself in the fact that you are getting made fun of every single day. There are tons of news anchors bashing you. Some are supporting you, which is great, but some are bashing you. People go through protests for you and against you, and I just feel like there's so many ways in which at that point you're just numb to it. And I feel like, now I'm sure doctors are great in the White House and in Congress and the Senate and Supreme Court. I'm sure they're amazing, but I feel like at some point you've really got to stray away from their physical health and focus more on their mental health.
Yeah, and it takes a toll to the politicians. It takes a toll because they're always gone, right? They're if they're in the House or the Senate, they're gone for half the year in Washington, right? So what does that do? It affects their families, and it affects their family's mental health.
Yep.
And it ends up destroying, because it's funny. I have a mom and dad. So, I see them fight a lot, and it always messes up the family structure when they fight because their whole mood is their mood's just messed up for the rest of the day. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And it messes with the kids.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about that before. So, if a man or a woman has their spouse like at home with the kids, it's gonna take a mental toll on the woman. Like it's gonna take the mental toll on her, and she's gonna. What does that lead to, right? Divorce.
Yeah.
That leads to all that stuff.
All that ugly stuff.
And think about it. You have a country to run. You have legislation to write up. You have a divorced wife. You have kids who don't really care about you because you're always gone. What is that going to do, dude? It's gonna kill
a lot of bad things.
And some men can take it. Some men don't really care about their families. Some men, it takes a heavy toll on them, right?
Yeah.
But, you have an obligation. If you're a politician, you have an obligation at work. But there's that point where you need to realize okay, this is a little bit too much. And I think that many men and women, a lot of men have reached that, not just with politics, dude, with everything.
Yeah. And so this is what I want to kind of wrap up this episode with. Is just the fact that I'm sure Nathan and I both acknowledge that mental health is real, and mental health is extremely. It's a huge factor in the way that people function in this life, Now, obviously, there's spiritual health, there's physical health, both equally as important, but I feel like mental health is still not getting the recognition that it deserves, And it's also getting desensitized, and the weight of the word is being lessened and lessened to the point where it's unhealthy. And so, overall, I think our message today is just whether it's aspiring politicians, whether it's aspiring doctors, lawyers, anybody aspiring to have a high position in a field, but also for the parents and for the teenagers and the college students, just to know that they're enough. That their expectations of, oh, there's somebody in my classroom who's so much smarter than me, or the people at the tournament that I was at. If I compare myself to those people, they're doing things 10 times more than I am. And if I compare myself to them at my age, that's going to go down a very unhealthy road. And so at the end of the day, I feel like we just want to say that your expectations are great. You should expect things out of yourself. But unreasonable expectations are so unhealthy.
Yeah, so I'm going to say something very simple, my conclusion. You said it very, very articulate and very smart. But dude, I'm going to say this. Look, from what I've learned and from what I was raised, right? I'm still young. Me and you are still young.
Yeah.
And we have a lot to learn.
Yes, definitely.
But I was raised to the point where you put your head down. You don't ignore your you always express your feelings. That's what I was told by my dad. Express how you feel, but in a healthy and in a controlled manner, so you can control your feelings.
Yeah.
If you say self-control it can be a man's greatest virtue. Yeah. So what I'm going to say, my message to the young men and women is, as I've said before, I'm going to restate it. In this world, you're going to have trouble.
Yeah.
But take heart, because the Lord, our Jesus Christ, has overcome the world. John 16:33. I live by that verse every single day. To think that you are not enough, and to think that you are weak, and to think that you are pointless in this society is a lie. Deception, straight from hell. And the fact that you believe this lie, and therefore implement this lie in your life, and use it as a crutch, and say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I'm not knocking anybody for that. I think that it's the fault of the devil as much as it's the fault of that person.
Yeah.
But to believe that lie is to destroy your society. If you believe that lie, if enough people believe it, they're going to destroy society. So the solution, I've said this many times, dude, go outside. Dude, eat right, work out, pray, do things you don't want to do, work hard, and you will succeed. You will have that higher dopamine level that we always talk about, and you will be the man and woman that you strive to be.
Yeah.
Because doing the easy way is easy, bro, and the hard way is hard. But the easy way will end up becoming hard, and the hard way will end up becoming easy if you just keep working at it, if you keep going. So don't give up. Whoever you are, whatever your name is, whatever gender you are, if you're a man or a woman, because there's only two genders, right? Don't quit, don't stop, don't use your mental health as a crutch. Keep going, keep fighting, and you are going to be good. Yeah, you're going to be good. You'll be fine. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think that wraps up our second episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate all of the people listening.
Yeah.
But
that was a pretty good one. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.